What would you do if you found out you inherited $30 million, but you only had 30 days to spend it?
For me, it was Tuesday.
Welcome to another episode of For Me, It Was Tuesday. I am your host, GQ. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button.
Anybody want to go to lunch? I'm buying.
Like the video, leave some comments on this video and the other ones I've done. Check out culturejunkies.net. Also hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Remember, we're also on Twitch and Discord, so we're also everywhere. You can also support us on Patreon, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Today, we're going to be looking at a very old movie. I didn't even realize that it came out this long ago. But, awesome movie. I've always enjoyed it as a kid and took another look at it recently, and given today's the fact that today is voting day, actually, in the United States, it seemed kind of appropriate to look at this one. Of course, I'm talking about the 1985 film, Brewster's Millions, directed by Walter Hill, starring Richard Pryor, John Candy, Lynette McKee, and Pat Hingle. Now, the film itself is actually not completely a comedy. Very strange considering the fact that you had Richard Pryor and John Candy starring in this film. But according to the screenwriter at Richard Pryor's request, or Mr. Pryor's request, he did not want the movie written similar to his stand-up style or even movies like Stir Crazy and some of the other films that he's obviously been involved in. So they kind of took a halfway, half comedic, half serious take on it. But before we even jump into this particular film, it's interesting to note that this is actually a remake. But it's not just a remake, it's the 7th remake of this particular story. The original book, or novel of course, was released in 1902. Same title, Brewster's Millions. It's undergone a couple of different, like I said, remakes or interpretations. And interestingly enough, they're actually supposed to be doing a updated version called Brewster's Billions. Who knows when, obviously with COVID and 2020, as weird as it is, lots of things are on hold. But getting back into this particular story, obviously Richard Pryor stars as Montgomery Brewster, title character. He's a minor league pitcher, kind of a little bit over the hill, getting kind of long in the tooth, not as good a pitcher as he used to be, but he believes in himself. He believes he's going to go to the majors and play, in the big leagues, that sort of thing. And he really, really wants to pitch a game against the New York Yankees because the film starts off in Hackensack, New Jersey. And all in all, I mean, it's a fun, down on his luck type character. Comes to find out that his uncle, a very eccentric uncle, he inherited what starts off as $30 million. Now, here's the interesting part. He can take the $30 million and go towards a full inheritance of $300 million. The catch is, he has to spend the $30 million in 30 days, cannot have any assets, cannot just, give away money, throw away, like he has to have receipts for all of his expenditures. And at the end of the 30 days, he literally has to have nothing, just the clothes that he walked in to the office to sign the contract. Or he can take the easy way out, take $1 million, and then clean and clear just the $1 million. So, obviously, he goes for it because if he didn't, we wouldn't have a film. And it's really interesting to see, and this was the part that as a kid, I loved seeing how he was going about spending the inheritance money. And again, keeping it a secret. Everybody around him thinks, dude, you're throwing away all your money. You're gonna be, broke before the end of the month, basically, even though in his mind, that's the goal. So it was cool to see him, take a whole bunch of strangers out to lunch, rent a fleet of limousines to be driven around with a huge entourage, rent all of the clothing that he was wearing throughout that entire month, bought $1 million+ stamp and mailed it so it wouldn't become an asset. I mean, it was really cool to see all the different little crazy ways they came up with for him to spend the money but not have any assets to show for. And again, very fun story. I think the reason it has stood the test of time, literally over 100-year-old story, is because everybody can kind of put themselves in that headspace of, hey, if I had inherited a bunch of money, what would I do? But especially if I inherited a bunch of money and could get even more money on top of that if I just have to spend it. So that's definitely one thing I want you guys to do in the comments. Write down all the, just different ideas that you have of like, how would you spend the 30 million but have nothing to show for it at the end of a month's time. And it might be a little bit harder than you think to, spend money and not have anything to show for it. But the one thing that always puzzled me as a kid, because again, younger, being a young kid at the time, I think I was probably 9 when this movie came out, I never understood the political part of it. And I thought watching it again recently, it was really interesting, especially in the political climate that we're in right now, where he runs a campaign because essentially he was trying to interject himself into the mayoral campaign in New York at the time. The two candidates that were there were both corrupt, mob ties, all sorts of like dirt, slush fund, dirty money, all that sort of thing. And he brings up the very funny, interesting thought of why would a politician spend $10 million to campaign for a $60,000 a year job in that particular, of course, time or whatever, being mayor of New York. And it was really kind of interesting to kind of look at it from that perspective. I mean, even of course, with our presidential campaign or presidential candidates, it's like you guys are dumping all this money and all these corporations are, giving them all this money to dump into advertising and all that other sort of thing for essentially what is a $400,000 a year job. And it's like, are you really truly doing the job? So his whole campaign was vote for none of the above. Now, I'm not suggesting anybody do anything crazy like that, because by the time this airs, there's going to be some voting getting done. So vote for somebody. Don't put like none of the above in like they do in this film. But I just thought that was a really interesting commentary, and it's really cool to see. Brewster's Millions, again, older film. I mean, like I said, it came out in 1985. The extras are fairly limited in the sense because at the time, Richard Pryor, I believe, was 45 when he filmed this movie or when he was in this movie. So, and this, of course, being a 1985 movie, DVD wasn't even around yet. It was VHS. Nobody was doing commentary tracks because you can't do that on the VHS. And so the new features and newer things that they did was they added an audio commentary track from some film critics. They put on a quick little interview with the screenwriter, which was awesome. And theatrical trailer, still gallery, the little usual stuff. But the cool thing is they put the entire 1945 film version, Brewster's Millions, is on this thing as an extra. So you basically get 2 movies for the price of 1. I've never, of course, seen the 1945 film. I am going to take some time eventually to watch that. I don't know if I'm going to review it. It just depends. Who knows? But it's really cool that they threw that on there because at least I can have something to compare the Richard Pryor version to. So I'm going to leave you guys with these final words. For many of you out there, if somebody walked in and said, hey, I'm gonna let you have $30 million, bar none, I can't think of anybody sitting here watching this or even thinking in that situation that wouldn't be like one of the greatest days of your life. But would you have what it takes to take that major gamble and say, okay, you got the 30, but can you turn it into 300 million by spending all of the 30 in 1 month? For some of you, that might be a really tough decision to make. But hey, for me,
It was Tuesday.
I'll see you guys next time. Hey, this is GQ. I just want to give a special shout out to DeMarcus Smith, Fab Nerd Life, and the NetNet, our Culture Junkies level patrons. Appreciate you guys for all your support. If you would like to dump $30 million plus into the Culture Junkies via Patreon, the IRS would probably want to have a word with you. But check this out. You guys can contribute and support the Culture Junkies for as little as $1 per month. I mean, hey, it's not too bad. There's a lot of other places out there asking for more than that a month. We're only asking for like $1. And if you want to get shout out from yours truly, there's other tiers, you can do that. But hey, we'll definitely appreciate it. So appreciate you guys. Love that you're watching our videos. I'll catch you next time. If you're enjoying our content, please consider going to our Patreon and becoming a supporter. There are different tiers to select from, and we thank you for your support.
Culture Junkies!